You wake up one day and everything feels strangely empty. There's that quiet question at the back of your mind. Is this it? Carl Jung once wrote, "The meaning of life is to make life meaningful." It sounds simple, but in those 7 words is a lifetime of exploration and a truth that can shake the way you see yourself, because Jung didn't believe the meaning of life was something you found lying on the ground like a coin in the street. It's something you create, step by step, by becoming more and more yourself. That's where I want to take you in this video, into Jung's perspective on the meaning of life, why it's so different from the quick answers we're used to, and how you can apply it right now to start feeling more grounded, more alive, and more at peace with who you are. We live in a time obsessed with happiness. There's this unspoken rule that if you're not smiling all the time, something's wrong. But Jung saw happiness differently. He knew life isn't a straight line of joy. It's a tension between opposites, light and dark, joy and grief, success and failure. And here's the thing, if you only chase the light, you cut yourself off from half of who you are. Jung called the journey to meaning individuation, the process of integrating all parts of your personality, your conscious self, your unconscious self, your shadow, those sides of you you'd rather hide, and even the parts that feel mysterious, like dreams or sudden intuitions. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. Now, Jung's ideas connect powerfully with the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. Frankl wasn't Jung's student, but his life embodies what Jung meant. In the concentration camps, Frankl saw that the people who survived weren't always the strongest physically. They were the ones who could hold on to some sense of meaning, even in the face of unimaginable suffering. For some, that meaning came from imagining a loved one they wanted to see again. For others, it was the idea of completing a project, a book, a mission. Frankl wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Jung would have agreed. When you have a reason, a personal, authentic reason, life's struggles don't disappear, but they stop feeling pointless. Think about your own life. How much of it is driven by what you think you should want? The career path that impresses others, the lifestyle that looks good on social media, the goals that sound right because someone else told you they're right. Jung would tell you, those may keep you busy, but they won't keep you alive inside. Meaning doesn't come from ticking boxes. It comes from a deep alignment between who you are on the inside and how you live on the outside. Here's the challenge. To live that way, you have to look in a mirror most people avoid. You have to see the sides of yourself you'd rather pretend don't exist. Jung called this your shadow. It's not just your bad traits, it's also your hidden potential, your unexplored talents, the parts you abandoned to fit in. If you only live as the version of yourself that pleases others, your life will always feel like someone else's script. So the meaning of life, in Jung's view, starts with a radical act. Stop running from yourself. The word individuation sounds academic, but here's what it really means. Imagine you're a house. Most people live only in the front room, the one that's tidy, decorated, safe for guests. The rest of the house stays locked, maybe even dusty or dark. Individuation is about slowly exploring every room, opening every door, and learning to live in the whole house. This process isn't quick. It happens over years, even decades. Jung himself admitted that he spent his entire life becoming who he really was. But it's worth it, because the more you integrate, the more your life feels like yours. Let's make this real with 3 steps you can start today. Notice your shadow triggers. Pay attention to the people or situations that make you overreact. Often, they reflect traits you've disowned in yourself. Instead of judging instantly, ask, What part of me am I seeing in them? Listen to your dreams. Jung saw dreams as messages from the unconscious, symbols trying to balance your conscious life. Keep a dream journal for a month. You might see patterns you didn't expect. Do one small act that feels authentically you. This could be creative, physical, intellectual. Anything that feels like it's coming from your deeper self, not your public self. It's less about what you do and more about why you do it. Jung once compared life to two trees growing from the same roots, one reaching up to the sky, the other reaching down into the darkness. The higher you want to grow, the deeper your roots must go into the soil, into the unseen, the uncomfortable, the parts you'd rather avoid. You can't prune away your roots and still expect to stand tall. The meaning of life, according to Jung, isn't about arriving at a perfect, final version of yourself. It's about living in honest dialogue with your whole self, the parts you love, the parts you fear, and the parts you don't even know yet. It's about accepting the tension between light and shadow and realizing they're both essential to your growth. The meaning of life, according to Jung, isn't about arriving at a perfect, final version of yourself. It's about living in honest dialogue with your whole self, the parts you love, the parts you fear, and the parts you don't even know yet. It's about accepting the tension between light and shadow and realizing they're both essential to your growth. When you start to live like this, something shifts. You stop asking, what's the right path for people like me? And start asking, what's my path? No matter how strange it looks from the outside. That's when meaning starts to take root, not as a grand, dramatic moment, but as a steady undercurrent in everything you do. Think about someone like Nelson Mandela. Decades in prison could have turned him bitter, but instead he used that time to reflect, to deepen, to confront his own anger and fear. When he walked out, he wasn't just free from prison. He was free from letting hate dictate his life. That transformation wasn't about positive thinking. It was about embracing the full complexity of who he was and what he'd lived through. That's individuation in action. The journey Jung describes is not easy. In fact, it can feel like you're breaking apart before you come together. But every step toward wholeness makes life richer. Not richer in things or achievements, but in a way that's harder to put into words. A sense of rightness, like you're standing where you're meant to stand. And maybe that's the quiet truth Jung was pointing to all along. The meaning of life isn't waiting for you somewhere out there. It's waiting for you in the parts of yourself you haven't met yet. And here's the paradox. When you live in this deeper way, life doesn't suddenly become easier, but it does become more yours. You stop measuring your days by how happy you felt and start measuring them by how true you were to yourself. Jung knew that a life of meaning is a life of responsibility to your own soul. It's not about finding the right answer, but about living the right questions every day. Because the moment you start listening inward, you realize the path has been under your feet all along. When you look back years from now, you won't remember every achievement or failure in detail. What you'll remember is whether you lived as a complete human being. Not just the polite version, not just the ambitious version, but the whole messy, beautiful truth of you. Jung's message is that this is the only way to feel truly alive, to walk through the light and the shadow without denying either. And if you can do that, you won't need to ask, what's the meaning of life? You'll be too busy living it to wonder.